Hello, this week we are going to be making these juice labels as if they were going to be put on a bottle like this. So this should be a really fun project. Let's go ahead and get started. So go ahead and open up Illustrator and we're going to say File Open or click the Open button, and let's go find our student files that we downloaded from the book. We're in Illustrator and these are the ones called Juice. I haven't extracted mine yet, so I'm just going to right click and say extract. So I'm going to right click and say extract all. And the one you need to open is called Juicy Labels. And I'm going to make sure we're in the Essentials Classic, so Window, Workspace, Essentials Classic. And to get this in the center of the page, just double click on the Zoom tool and double click on the Hand tool. So in Essentials Classic, the swatches should be right here. If you can't find them, just go to Window and open up the Swatches panel. Open this up a little bit so you can see everything. And then go up to the hamburger menu, the three little lines, and say Select All Unused. Now we're going to get rid of these except for these last three down here. So click Control and then unselect these last three. Once you're sure those are not selected, we're just going to trash those. You can either drag them down to the trash can or just click the trash can. And that's what's left. Click on this button right here so we have a list view. So that's the icon view we were in and the list view. And make sure we can see all of them. They also have these grays. We're not going to need that, so let's trash that too. So at this point we've made some changes. Let's go ahead and save this so any changes we make will not be made on our original file. We want to put it in our work in progress file. That way if you have to start over again, you still have your original file from the student download. So say File, Save As. And we need to go find our work in progress folder. And I'm going to call this Amy-Roberts Juicy Labels. Oh, it looks like I have caps lock on. So now every time we hit Control S for save, it's going to save it back in work in progress instead of in our original folder. Now before we start designing, we've got all our colors ready, but we need to make a gradient swatch that we can use. So the gradient window should be right here. If you can't find it, once again, go to Window and open up the gradients, which would be right here. You see how it's got a little check on it telling us that it's already in our thing. It's already open. So we're going to go to this middle gradient, which is a radial gradient. And we're going to double click right here on the white one, the little white dot. And it's going to bring up the colors. You could choose the colors right here, but we already have our swatches. So go to Swatches. And then we're going to choose this second little yellow right here next to the kind of burgundy color. So we're just telling it the first one we need to be that yellow. Now you can hit Escape to get out of that. And let's double click on this other little dot. And we're going to choose that middle kind of orangey one on the top row. Now if you're in the selection tool and you put your mouse kind of right here in the middle, you see how it adds a little plus sign? So you're going to add another stop right there and double click on that one and choose that same orange again. So now that you've gotten out of that, pick that one up and move it over until about 45. And you can just type it in down here because it's hard to get it exactly. I'm pretty close, but you can type in 45. Now notice these little diamonds up here. That's kind of telling us where it's gradiating between the two. Pick up that first little diamond and move it over until it's about 75%. You can see it's a very subtle gradient that it's making. Now we want to add one more color to that, and we need to have our swatches open at the same time. So if you pick up the gradient swatch, if you pick it up right here by kind of the word gradient, you can move it off to the side so that it's not stuck there. That way we can open up our gradients, then we can open up our swatches at the same time. So now I want you to grab this second one down here. You might need to go back to list view, this one right here. Just pick it up and drag it and drop it there in the middle. And it needs to be about 70%, so you can type in 70. So now we have four, well actually I guess we have 3 colors on our gradient. So that's 2 different ways that you can add colors to your gradients, just dragging them over, or you can click on the dots. So now that we have that one made, I want you to pick it up by this little box right here and drag it and drop it right underneath the black. And you see it has made us a new gradient swatch, so we don't have to make that. It's ready for us and we can drop it on things later. Double click on this little teeny, the little icon. We're going to call this Honey Radial. And hit OK. So we have our radial swatch. Now we need to go and change it from radial to linear. So you see it looks a little bit different, but it didn't change our swatch. That's still got the round on it. Let's pick it up again from right here, click and drag it over. Now we have a second gradient swatch. Double click on that and let's call this Honey Linear. And hit OK. So now we're kind of done with dealing with the gradient swatches. I'm going to go ahead and pull this back over and dock it. You see where it turns blue right there? And then you can let go, just so if we need it later. And we're kind of done with that. So I need to get a little area off to the side. Remember, you can hit this space bar and just kind of move it over. We just need a little bit of area. This is called the paste board. Think of it as you're at a desk and that's our piece of paper. And we're just going to do something over here on the side for the desk. So we need to go over here and reset it back to the default. So just click right there. And we're going to get our polygon tool. Hold down your mouse and you'll see it right here, the polygon tool. So just click one time somewhere in the paste board. And we need our radius to be 0.75. And we're going to let it have 6 sides and say OK. And it has made a polygon for us. So while that is still selected, you can see the little blue dots are around it. We're going to go over here in Properties and change our stroke to 3. And then click right here on Fill. And your swatches will come up and we're going to choose that radial, Honey Radial that we just made. So we have that gradient in there. And now let's change the stroke. So click on Stroke and let's make this lower. Let's make this yellow right here. And now make sure you're on the Fill. And we're going to go to the Gradient tool in our tool panel. And you can see it's given us a little visual representation of where those stops are that we made. And when your mouse gets up here above that white outline, when your mouse gets up here above that little white dotted outline, you're going to see a little plus. Just click and drag that until it goes all the way outside. So basically what we've done is gone and changed what that gradient looks like. Click on it. When you hover over it again, you'll see that it's got the size that it is. So click that and let's drag it so that it's more of a oval, kind of like that. And let's open back up the gradient panel, which I had docked down here. And let's make sure that this is 70% for how much of an oval it is. And right here needs to be -35. Okay, that's looking nice. Now let's go back up to the swatches panel. And we're going to make this what we call a pattern swatch. So pick up this entire thing and click and drag it, and you can drop it over the top of Honey Radial. And it's going to make a new pattern swatch. So let's call this Honeycomb. And you see it kind of did something weird there. You can delete this. What we just did was, I'll just kind of show you. We have made a pattern out of those honeycombs. Do you see that you could fill this shape with that honeycomb? You can fill things either with a color, with a gradient, with a pattern, or with a texture. So we have just made a pattern swatch with that honeycomb, and now we're going to go and change it. So I'm just going to delete this because I just did this to show you what it is. Let's double click on that honeycomb right on the icon, and this is going to bring up the pattern changes that we need to make. So first thing we're going to do is change this from grid to hex by column, and then we're going to click. So now we need to change this so it's exactly what the book says. Make sure this is got a line through it so it's turned off. And we need this one to be 1.5. And the height needs to be 1.299. Okay, we're done changing that, so you can click right here and say done. Now we need to make sure we can see what's going on here. So once again, double click the hand tool, double click the zoom tool, and let's grab our rectangle tool and draw a rectangle that is the size of your label. And you'll see when it matches when you see the little intersect come up. So for that, we need there to be no stroke. You see it automatically chose honeycomb because that's what I had selected in swatches. So we're gonna go right here and say I want no stroke whatsoever, and then go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And if you look in your Layers panel, you'll see it automatically kind of put that to the very bottom. There's that rectangle we just made. So that looks pretty good, but it's very bright to be a background. It's kind of distracting. So go back to your Swatches panel and double click on that honeycomb. And we're back in here. Make sure that you have that middle one selected. So get the selection tool and select the main one in the middle. And we need to change the opacity of that up here to about 20%. And hit done again. And because we changed it to that one, it changed all of them. So it's a light in the background. So let's save our work, Control S. And with your selection tool, select this the box that's behind all these words. And let's make sure we're on the stroke. So click to activate that. We're now on the stroke. Let's go, and you can see we're on the stroke too in the swatches panel because stroke is at the front. So make sure that you're on the stroke, and we're going to choose Honey Linear. And you see it just changed the what was on the stroke, not on what was on the inside. Now that looks pretty good, but it's very light here and then dark over here, and it's just kind of looking strange. So let's go back into the gradient panel. And we're going to click this middle button right here, which says Apply Gradient Along Stroke, and click it and see the difference. You see it kind of it knows that it's on a stroke, and it made it look prettier for these purposes. It would probably look better if it was inside a box to leave it the way it was. Okay, now that we've got that, I want you to go over here and grab this one right here, which is called the Width tool. And the Width tool is pretty cool. It can take anything that is just a straight line and change it, or it can change the width of any type of line. So put it up here to the top left anchor and click and drag out until you see it is at about 0.2. And that's kind of hard to do. And what you can do is double click right there on that little blue dot, and I can tell it exactly 0.2. So with that same width tool, hover over until you see it says intersect. When it says intersect, it's just telling us it's at the center. Now, if we were to start drawing on it right now, if I were to click and drag it, you see it's doing both sides at one time. If you want to split that, you just, while you're doing it, so make sure it's on intersect, click Alt, and then do it. Do you see it's only doing one side? We need to do that until the width of side 1 is 0.5. And once again, if you can't get it exactly, just double click, and we need side 1 to be 0.5. I'm sorry, 0.05. Now realize you can pick this up and drag it around. You see how it's kind of moving things. So go ahead and pick it up and drag it until it's right over the A. That's looking pretty cool. Now we need to do something to the right one over here. Instead of dragging it like we've been doing it before, let's just double click on it and we can type in what the book wants it to be. So on side 1, we need it to be 0.075 and hit the tab, and 0.11 for side 2 and hit OK. And now the book says you can do whatever you want with these other sides. Don't do too crazy. So make them look kind of similar. You can do it either with your hand, by hand, or you can do it however you want to do it. So just get it to the way you like it. Yeah, that's pretty good. No, this is too thin. Remember, if you mess it up, you can always say Control Z for undo. So now make sure you're out of the width tool and just go back to the regular selection tool. And let's use our space bar to kind of move over a little bit. So space bar and drag it over. And we've got these little icon things. So with your selection tool, just click and drag around these 3 little lines. And we're going to get our brushes panel open. It's right underneath the swatches. So it's making us a brush out of those 3 lines. We're going to choose Art Brush, hit OK. And in here, we need to make sure that this is at 100% and everything else should be OK. And hit OK. So make sure nothing is selected and click this little plus sign. We're going to make a new brush. And this time we're going to make a pattern brush. Hit OK. And let's call this Bee Trails. And it's got a lot of little choices, like what do you want to happen in the corners and what do you want to happen at the very top and at the back and the end of it and all that type of stuff. So that's what it's asking us. So it's asking us here, what do you want me to put on the main lines? So click this little down thing and we're going to choose the one called Trails. And you see it's putting that as a trail along our line, all the little lines. And it's asking us here, what do we want the first thing to be? Click that and choose the bee. Isn't that cute? So everything's fine here. Hit OK. Now we're going to use that brush and apply it just like I did with that weird ugly denim brush. So with your selection tool, click this path that is made for us here. And we're going to just click once to apply that to what we have. That looks pretty cute. Okay, so select off of that. And then we're going to make these things right here look like they're drips of honey. So make sure nothing is selected and we're going to make a new brush. And we're going to make another pattern brush. Call this brush Honey Drips. And we're going to tell it for the lines we want you to use that little black drip that we made. And hit OK. So now with your selection tool, click that first line, shift, and then click the other 3 lines. So we've got all 4 of those selected. Let's apply that brush to them. Now right now they're kind of the opposite way, but we're going to fix that. So to fix those to go the right direction, let's just double click on the brush again over here. And we're going to say flip along. So it's going the other direction. And then down here where it says colorization, right now we're saying we don't want it to be colorized. I want you to change that to tints and hit OK. And it's going to ask you, well, do you want that to be any new stuff, or do you want me to apply it to stuff that's already there? Yes, we want apply to strokes. And so what it did was it took those lines, had those different colors in it. It went ahead and changed it because we said don't leave it just black, use the tint of the color. So now we need to go and change so these are all a little bit different. So select off of them anywhere in the pasteboard, and then just select the first one, the one that's bright orange. So on this first one, let's change the stroke. You can do it over here in your properties panel. So instead of just 1 point, we need this one to be 0.3 and hit enter. Now let's choose the second line, and we need this one to be 0.5, enter. Choose the third line, and we need that one to be 0.75, enter. And choose the last one, and we need that one to be 0.5. That's looking good. Control S for save. So we've just made a bunch of different brushes, but what if we need to use them in a different file? We can actually save a brush library. So in your brushes, go up to the hamburger menu and say select all unused, and let's delete them. And say yes. So these are just the ones that are being used. Now go back to the hamburger menu and say save brush library. And we're going to go put that in our work in progress folder. And let's call that Juicy Brushes. So now that's saved, and we can use that again later. Now once you have those saved, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You could always load them back, like if you're in a new project, you can always say, open brush library and go find them. You'd say other library and go find them. That's kind of how I do it. There's another way you can do it. If you close this brush library and go to Window, and you have to go all the way kind of to the bottom, and you see it's got a window called Brush Libraries. Say Other Library, and let's go find where we put them. And there it is, Juicy Brushes. And it's going to open them. You see it put it in a little separate file. So now let's open up the Symbols panel. That's Window, Symbols. So what's good about symbols is if we had a bunch of things on a poster, for instance, that were all the same thing, we can make them a symbol, and then if we change it once, it will change it everywhere it is. So we're going to make it easier for us this way. Go ahead and click on the Juicy logo and click the New button in Symbols. So it's going to make a new symbol out of that. Let's call that Juicy logo. We need it to be a dynamic symbol, and make sure the little dot is in the center, and hit OK. And you can see it's made a little symbol up there of this logo. All right, so now we need to make another one. We're going to click right here to get this grapefruit, this whole little grapefruit text, and click New Symbol. We're going to call this text grapefruit. Everything else is fine. Hit OK. Now you see we have two symbols that we've made, the Juicy logo and the text grapefruit. And in your symbols, let's get rid of all these that we don't need. So click on the hamburger menu and say select all unused and delete that. Now I need to use one other symbol library. So click on the little plus. So click on the hamburger menu and say Open Symbol Library. Go down to Other Library and go to your original files that you downloaded from the book. And you see how there's one called Label Fruit. Open that. So it's almost like we've got our symbols and then we have this new symbol that we added. Go ahead and pick that symbol up and drag it onto your artboard like that. Now while that's still selected, go to your properties and we need to put this over in the corner. So we're just going to do that with math. Type in on the X, type in 8, hit tab. For the Y, we need it to be at 5.75. Hit tab again, and you should be up at width. Make sure that this is locked so that it's on. You don't want to have a little lock through it. You need it to be on. In width, we need it to be 70% as big as it is. So type in 70 and then percent. Perfect. Let's go ahead and save again. Control S. So that looks good, but it is covering up our B. So with your selection tool, click on the little line that we have with the B, and you can right click and say Arrange, Bring to Front. Okay, let's go to View, Fit Artboard in Window. So we've got all these symbols and everything, but we are going to have to use this for several different labels. So let's make a copy of this text grapefruit. So just click on it once and then click over here and say duplicate symbol. Then we can double click on this and we're going to change this word to be. Double click on this and we need to change this word grapefruit to say lemon. So just double click on it to get the text tool and type lemon. Now while that's still selected, we need to change the color to our lemon color. So click on your swatches and it's down here in the fruit colors, the one called lemon. And then let's change the name of this to text lemon. I mean, if you look back at our symbols, it's changed the color in that one up at the top, but not in text group grapefruit. So let's do this again. We'll grab the lemon one. We're going to say duplicate. And we're going to call this one lime, text lime. Double click on it, change the word lemon to say lime. So get your text tool. Select all of that. In your swatches, change it to be lime. And you'll see it's changed it up there. Let's do one more time, duplicate it. This one's going to be called text orange. Get your type tool and change this word to orange. Highlight it. And it needs to be the orange swatch. So now we should have 6 symbols. So now if you haven't deleted, we don't really need these anymore. So let's use our selection tool and just select on these and delete them. So we have our first label, but now we need to make some separate labels. So we're going to use the artboard panel. It should be right here. So click on it and it will open, and you're seeing we have one artboard. Think of artboards as being like different pieces of paper that we have artwork on. So click right here and we need to duplicate that first artboard. And we're going to do that 4 times. So we have 4 artboards. Click back in the hamburger menu and say arrange or rearrange all artboards. And it's going to pop this up, and we need to say we want 2 columns. So we want 2 columns and we want our spacing to be 1 inch. And do say move artwork with artboard. So now let's rename these artboards. So if you double click on that one, we're going to call this one grapefruit. Double click on the second one, this will be lemon. Third one's lime. And the fourth one is orange. So with your selection tool, in this second one, which should be lemon, we're going to click once here on the words that say grapefruit. And right here, do you see where it says in properties, replace symbol? Click on that and we're going to replace it with the second one, which should be the one that says text lemon. And if you hover over it, it says text lemon. And it changed it. Now let's do the same with the lime. So click this one. We're on lime. Go to replace and choose the lime one. And go to the last one and replace that symbol with orange. Now we want to make a little bit of a change to the logo, and we want it to change on all 4 of our labels. We want it to change on all 4 of our labels at the same time. So double click on the little icon over here in your symbols, and it's going to open up that juicy logo. So with your selection tool, click on the U, shift, and click on the B. And we're going to change that fill. You can click right here and fill, or you can go to swatches. And we want to change this second yellow color right here. Now just double click outside of it. And you see it has changed that symbol and it put it on all 4 of our labels at the same time. Now, if you remember, the fruit that we put down here is also a symbol. So we don't want it to change on all of them. We want this to look like a lemon. So we're not going to get the direct selection tool. We're not going to get the selection tool. We're going to get the direct selection tool. And just select right there in this where the fruit of where the meat of the fruit is. And let's click on fill and change that to our lemon color. Now, because we're in the direct selection tool, it's only going to change it on that one, not on all of them. Now choose the outside part right there and change that to that same lemon color. And the little inside part right there also needs to be the same lemon color, but it needs to be at an opacity of 50%. So you can change that right here to about 50. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other 2. Make sure you're in the direct selection tool. So now with your regular selection tool, just make sure all of the orange one is selected, and let's drag those over into our symbols library and call this label done. And then we want to save this symbol library so we could use it again later, just like we saved our brushes. So click on the hamburger menu and say Save Symbol Library. We're going to go put that in our work in progress. And call that Juicy Symbols. So now you can leave this sitting open, and let's go to File, Open, and go to your original project files that you downloaded from the book. And get this one called bottle.ai. And notice that our symbols have reverted back to just the basic symbols that are there. We need our juicy symbols. So go to the hamburger menu, say Open Symbol Library, Other Library, and let's go find those. We put them in our work in progress folder, right? Juicy Symbols. And here they are down here. So go ahead and get the one called Label Done and drag it and drop it on top of your bottle. Now, because we saved all these, it's going to we're able to use them in a brand new project. So that is already selected. Hit Shift and also select your bottle and go up to Window, Mockup, Beta. Now this is a brand new thing using AI, and you probably have to install it. If you haven't done this already, just say install. And it'll take a second. It's just adding this because it's brand new. So once it's done downloading, just click this Mockup button. And it is going to create a mockup for you out of those two items. This is really cool and will be very useful. You can move it around. You can grab this and change, this, the size of it and stuff like that. What I would do is rotate it some. Now, depending on how fast your computer is, this may take a while because it has to redo everything. Ooh. And in order to rotate it, you see that little box, you just kind of move that around. Just click and drag to the right or the left to kind of move it. So get this looking the way you want. I don't mind to move over just a little bit more and then I'll be happy with mine. Come on now. This does take up a lot of computing power. Once you get this the way you want, you need to save this in your work in progress folder with your name on it. So I would name mine Amy-Roberts Bottle. And you're going to turn in both of these files to me this week. So we've made some pretty stuff. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.